Welcome back to Movies TV Mad. You can follow me on Twitter at Movies TV Mad. And welcome to Sunday's edition of the DCEU Daily. On today's show, we're going to discuss together how we can save the Flash movie. Please get involved in the comments below. I will respond to all of them if I can. We're also going to discuss the viability of the DCEU going forward, the Todd Phillips universe with Joker going forward, the viability of that, and Matt Reeves' Batman universe. We'll talk about the viability of all these franchises in the DC live action universe and kind of see if they have a true viability moving forward. And at the end of the video, I'm going to discuss the Smallville movie event, Absolute Justice, and I can't wait to be doing that. But I do have one DCEU update for you, so let's get the details. Shazam 2 will be scored by an MCU veteran composer. Ooh, who could this be? David F. Sandberg reveals that Christopher Beck is now composing Shazam, Fury of the Gods, replacing Benjamin Wolfowitz, who scored the first film. By the way, Benjamin is scoring the Flash movie. Great score, by the way. I've heard it. Great score. So he's actually already scored that movie. And this is by Brady Entwistle of Screen Rant. Shazam Fury of the Gods has brought on Christopher Beck, an MCU veteran composer, to create its score. Directed by David F. Sandberg, the upcoming sequel to 2019 Shazam serves as the 12th entry in the DCEU and will follow its titular superhero as he takes on Hespera and Calypso, the daughters of Greek titan Atlas. In addition to Sandberg, the film returns much of its cast and crew, with Henry Gayden having come back to write the script, and Benjamin Wolfowitz originally getting tapped to compose the score again. As the result of an altering release schedule, Shazam Fury of the Gods premiere date was pushed back and will be debuting on December the 21st, 2022, 5 days after Avatar Way of the Water. I think it's a disastrous release date. I would have done everything possible not to release this movie in December, and certainly not release an animated movie, The League of DC Super Pets, in the, wham smack in the middle of the summer schedule. I would have put Shazam Fury of the Gods as a summer release. It would have done a lot better than it's going to do in that day. Now, Sandberg has taken to Twitter to update fans on another change, sharing that Christopher Beck has replaced Benjamin Wolfowitz as the film's composer. After one fan asked about I can't read his surname, Wolowicz's return, the director replied that due to scheduling issues, Beck had stepped in to score the sequel, but added that he has done amazing work. Check out Sandberg's tweet below. So Hector Gonzalez, hey Pony Smasher, hey David, I don't know if it has been announced, but is Benjamin Wolfowitz returning to score Shazam 2? Thanks, and can't wait for the movie. That was the plan, but schedules got in the way. There are just too many movies being made at once right now. It's Beck official scoring this one, and he's done an amazing job. He is an amazing composer, and I'm happy with his addition. Christopher Beck has a long and impressive discography, having scored Disney's Frozen series, wow, I didn't know that, as well as a handful of Marvel projects such as the Ant-Man films, WandaVision and Hawkeye. By the way, WandaVision's music was really good. As Sandberg puts it, a lot of movies are being made right now, but fans can rest assured that Beck will be a capable replacement. And with the addition of Helen Mirren and Lucy Liu, there is still much to be excited about. They can look forward to seeing what Beck brings to the film when Shazam Fury of the Gods hits theatres this holiday season. So that's a bit of exciting small news, if you like, that Beck is doing this movie. Yes, he's a capable composer, and I'll be very excited to hear what he's going to give us. Obviously, as I say, Benjamin, whose surname I'm not going to attempt to say one last time, did the Flash movie. It is a great score. I don't know if you're ever going to get to hear it, But next on today's DCEU Daily, we're going to attempt to save the Flash movie. So let's imagine whoever's watching this video has been appointed as the president of a brand new formed DC Studios. And our first job is to save the Flash movie. So what do? We don't think about it. We don't debate it. Straight away, we are replacing Ezra Miller as the Flash. Job 1. Job 2 is to call Henry Cavill in to bring him in to play his Superman role. Now, if that's not possible, if the studio don't feel they want him any longer as Superman, then we must insist that we recast Superman. And in terms of the Flash movie being this multiverse strategy, you know, you can do that. You can cast a brand new Superman. Now, it wouldn't be my first choice. I would love to bring Cavill back before everyone starts losing their shit. But if I can't do that, I must involve Superman, because replacing Superman with Supergirl, having General Zod, aka Michael Shannon, killing him off as a baby, I'm sorry. It's not feasible. It's not viable. It is outrageous. We are not going to do that. The multiverse strategy by Walter Hamada is a good idea. In fact, in the early days of hearing this, as you all know, I was very hyped and I thought, yes, this is going to be awesome. Reset the bastard. You know, it's had so many problems. I love the Snyderverse, but he's not there anymore. They don't want him there anymore. They have to do something. So if you intelligently do this, you know, you've got to do it in the right way, because the Flash movie does reset the DCEU. I don't feel it resets it in a total viable way, but that's what they've done. So they need to rewrite this movie. They've recast the Flash. We're going to introduce Superman as well. So that's what we're doing. So Christina Hodson, as far as I'm concerned, because I am the new president of the newly formed DC Studios, so Christina Hodson doesn't get to come back to write this movie. I'm getting my boot and I'm kicking her off the project, right? You're off. I call Andy Machete to my building and I say, sorry, Andy, you're not directing this movie. Sorry, mate. Bye-bye. See you later. No hard feelings. The It movie's great. It Chapter 2 not so great. You've got a small CV. I don't trust you. I think you're a stormtrooper of Toby Emmerich. He's gone now. You have both gone, you know, because at the end of the day, what is your DC knowledge? I mean, I think Machete's a bit of a DC fan, but that doesn't mean he has the right to direct the Flash movie. So Hodgson and Machete are gone. So I don't know who I bring in to write this film, to rewrite this film, but it's someone that must understand these characters and these DC multiversal universes as well. So we bring people in to remake this movie. Now, you know, there's a script there. So you take Christina Hodgson's script, you don't have to start again. Now, because as I say, I think the multiversal strategy idea is a good one. Because, you know, I mean, you could start with, because we're going to talk about the viability of the different DCEU live action universes out there right now and discuss if it's better to do one universe or a multitude of universes as well. But because they've started on this train, because they spent $200 million on the Flash movie, we've got to make sure we do something really good, but we don't remake the entire movie. So we look at Christina Hodgson's script. We look at what we can keep, right? We can keep Supergirl, right? We can keep Flashpoint Supergirl. Sasha Calle can stay. There's no issue about that. She's not the issue in this movie. Unless we look at her role and we think, well, maybe this isn't the right direction. Maybe we'll recast Supergirl. But that would be something that, you know, I can't talk about her role in it. I think she's very effective in the movie. You know, there's elements of it I'm not sure about anyway. So we can keep Sasha Calle's Supergirl for now. But we do need Superman in this movie. So I think what I'd like to do is kind of reassess this element. So I would like to have maybe a Flashpoint Superman and a Flashpoint Supergirl. Maybe that, you know, maybe they're cousins like in the comics, or maybe they're brother and sister. You know, maybe they arrived from Krypton together. We could do something special there. Now, the elephant in the room, of course, is Michael Keaton's Batman. This is part of the kind of extended issue we're talking about. Is this universe viable? Is the Phillips universe viable? Is the Reeves universe viable? Is the DCEU viable? We've got a bit of a problem. I've mentioned this so many times before. I love Robert Pattinson as the Batman. And yes, can I say this? I'm going to say this. Robert Pattinson does cameo. You've probably heard rumours about this in the Flash movie. A very quick cameo. I'm surprised Matt Reeves allowed it. Maybe it wasn't his decision and he didn't have a choice in the matter. Who knows? So, because we're doing a multiverse here, and because Robert Pattinson's in this movie for just a sneak peek, right? You know, the Michael Keaton situation's kind of interesting to me. Now, Michael Keaton is amazing in the Flash movie, but do we stick or do we twist? Do we keep him in the movie or do we get rid of him? Well, Michael Keaton is involved in Batgirl. You know, the previous leadership before I took over, right, because we're pretending I'm running a newly formed DC Studios, right, spent money on a Batgirl movie. We can't double down on that, but as I've brought someone in to rewrite this movie, I'm booting Christina Hodson's script out of that movie. I want elements of the Flash movie and the Batgirl movie to be rewritten. Because I want to look at that. Because basically, I have no trust, excuse me, in Christina Hodson. And so, she's gone. So I'm rewriting both the movies she was involved with. Or looking at both the scripts and looking at them deeply. Because we have this opportunity. I say keep Keaton. But he can't be the main Batman of the DCEU if in fact we're going to keep the DCEU. If I'm doing a Flash movie that sets up a multiversal strategy, then everything continues to be canon. But we can't pick and choose. You know, Joker is part of the multiverse. So Todd Phillips' universe must be part of that. If that just means a little cameo in the Flash movie, fine. But you can't disengage when you want to. You're either going to do a multiversal strategy or you're not. So in this what this Flash movie has to do, because this was the original plan and it's there in the movie, is that everything live action, ever done in live action, is canon. You know, Batman 66, Batman 89, Batman 92, Nolan's Batman, Donner's Superman. Actually a beautiful moment in the film, I will say, involving Christopher Reeve's Superman and some other people as well. And so, if you're going to go with this, if we're going to rewrite this movie, then we make sure the whole entire universe is canon. So, that's what you have to do. But you have to canonize it in an interesting way, and it can't take all the time of the movie. It just has to be little flashes of brilliance. So, yeah. Let's keep Michael Keaton. We need to keep Michael Keaton because we don't want to start from scratch with the Batgirl movie. And Keaton being involved in Batgirl is probably going to be really, really awesome, judging from the scenes and the performance he gives in the Flash movie. So you can keep him, but you have to rewrite elements because I don't want Keaton as the main Batman. Sorry, this is ageist and I've spoken against this kind of thought before, you know, these opinions before about his age, but he can't be the main Batman. He can be there. He can be going around recruiting people for the final crisis that's coming. You can still keep that final crisis thing because it's building up to an event, and that absolutely works. So you keep Affleck at the beginning of the film. You keep Keaton, you keep Sasha Calle's Supergirl, but Superman must be involved. In this new multiversal Justice League we're going to have, you've got to have a Superman somewhere. And you've got to have a tight relationship. Now there's a decision to be made. Who's going to be the main Batman? Is it going to be Robert Pattinson? Or are we going to bring someone else in? Or do we go back to Ben Affleck? Now, if Ben Affleck can be convinced by David Zaslav and myself that this is a new regime, it's not as toxic as it was before, my opinion would be go with Affleck. Keep Affleck. He's in his 50s. He looks great. People, it's like Cavill. Cavill and Affleck are loved by everyone. It's the Snyderverse that has this divisive kind of mindset to it. So bringing Cavill and Affleck back isn't a big deal. And actually it's really good because they've already got this relationship in history as Superman and Batman. So if we can, keep Batfleck and Cavill as the main Superman and the main Batman. But there's no reason why Brandon Routh can't cameo. There's no reason, and I'm not going to tell you if that's the thing in the movie. I'm just talking about my movie, right? So there's no reason why Tyler Hoechlin and Brandon Routh can't be involved in this new multiversal strategy as well. And so we set up a real multiversal universe that's all canon. And that's the issue with this movie. It's the subtraction of Henry Cavill's Superman, not any Superman whatsoever. You can't go in and reset a multiversal strategy and pick and choose what's there and what's not. And also, the Flash movie can't be a movie that builds its new universe, its new multiverse, on the bones of Zack Snyder's Man of Steel, Batman vs. Superman, and the Snyder Cut. You must keep the Snyderverse as canon. If you want to do what they do in this movie again, spoiler alert, which is move it somewhere else so it's not part of the main universe anymore, you can still do that. There's a lot of potential of that. But ultimately, the main thing is with this movie is to bring Superman into the fold. Because as I say, you can't reset this franchise by having Zod kill Superman as a baby and having stock footage of Man of Steel, and that's all you get. I loved seeing Michael Shannon Zod in this movie. I loved seeing Feora in this movie. They are great in the movie. But the idea to remove Henry Cavill's Superman out of this movie is actually a bigger issue to me than keeping Ezra Miller. But Ezra Miller has behaved unforgivably. There's no way back for Ezra Miller. He wasn't the best casting as the Flash, so I'd be very happy as the president of the newly formed DC Studios to remove him. Whether it's Dylan O'Brien, Grant Gustin, Austin Butler, whoever. We need a Flash. Now, my idea is maybe to create, in this movie, one of the issues that Ezra had within this movie, that it just uses the Flash's abilities and it's not really focusing on the heart of the character, even though this film begins with Barry wanting to save his family, save his father from prison, save his mother from being murdered. So that's a good element. But I think within this movie, what we can do is we can introduce the Flash family. We can introduce Bart Allen as well. And all these elements, and Captain Cold and things like this, the Flash Rogues Gallery. You can do a lot of exciting things. And yes, a reverse Flash and all of that. So you can do that within this multiversal movie. You must change the narrative of this movie, that its central core narrative is about the Flash, but you're resetting this universe at the same time. I think with Christina Hodgson out and someone more proficient, and someone who has an understanding of this universe and these characters could really make a good movie. But what you do is you look at Hodgson's script and you move the players around, you bring in Superman, because basically that's the major thing. Bringing in Superman, right? Not doing anything controversial here. Because killing off Superman is ridiculous. To actually say we don't like Henry Cavill, we don't want him back, let's blacklist him, even though we've got Ezra Miller, who's literally breaking the law left, right and centre, let's keep him and blacklist that English gentleman who's never put a foot wrong, Henry Cavill, that's an issue. But as I said earlier, even if you don't want to work with Cavill again, a multiversal strategy Flashpoint movie is the perfect opportunity to recast him. You either do one thing or the other, but you don't bin Superman. And once you put Superman in this movie and you reset it, and Cavill's Superman is there, and Affleck's Batman is there, and Keaton's Batman is there, right, you can do it. But the decision still remains, could you have all these Batmen? Well, they would have to be doing different things. What would Batfleck be doing? Does he remain within the central universe, or does he vanish like he does in this movie? I don't think that's a spoiler. I think most of you know that already, and we get that exciting post-credit scene which we've discussed on a multitude of occasions here on this channel. That's the decisions you have to make. I think you have to keep Keaton because you don't want to go back to the drawing board with Batgirl. You may want the reason that Batgirl hasn't got a release date is because the Flash movie may never be released. That's the problem right now. If you recast the lead, if you recast the Flash, aka Barry Allen, then you fix that movie and you can continue with Batgirl. Now you can reset it a little bit. There may be some issues within Christina Hodgson's script. I don't know. So I would have to look at the Batgirl movie as the new president of DC Studios. But it may be that Batgirl is such a good film, I wouldn't have to do anything with it. But you need to keep Keaton because you don't want to go back to the drawing board with Batgirl. So he has to stay. And maybe he dies a hero's death within that movie. But, interestingly enough, that is not true, is it? Because he's in Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. So clearly, right? Clearly, what I meant earlier is I could kill him off within the Batgirl movie, but that would give me a problem because he's already, as I know from my own experience with that film as well, that Michael Keaton's Batman is in Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. So there was a plan years ago to give Henry Cavill's Superman all these cameos. Now they've decided to swap Henry Cavill for Michael Keaton's Batman. So he can be doing that. That can be his role. So I think it will be okay to do that with Batfleck, like he vanishes and then you've got the Snyderverse in the corner and Zack can do his own thing, but they're working towards a final crisis. So Keaton can stay, but you have to refine it. But I think in terms of the Flash movie and saving this movie, it's very, very simple. All you have to do is two things. Recast the Flash and bring in Henry Cavill's Superman. If you do that, you can save this movie. You'll have to spend a bit of extra money on reshooting what's been rewritten. And, basically Ezra is the main, is the actor who's in most of the scenes in this movie. So you're going to have to work around with the new actor, but do it. Just do it. Get rid of Miller now. It is not enough to say he's sacked from the rest of the DCEU, right? Because, you have to do something. And sitting on your hands and saying, well, maybe things will be better by June is the biggest gamble in film history. And you don't want to be doing that. So recast the Flash, bring in Superman for this movie, and that's how you can save the Flash movie. Will they do this? Because this is Hollywood. And, a lot of people have made the point that they don't want to cancel this movie. They spent $200 million on it. But if they release this movie as is, without Superman and with Ezra Miller leading it, it's going to lose as much money being released as it would not being released. So I think if they want to save that $200 million, invest a little bit more, cast a brand new Flash, bring Superman into the fold, and something very exciting can happen for the future of the DCEU. Right now, we have 3 DC live-action universes in cinema, in terms of cinema. So we're taking away Arrowverse for now. I might discuss the viability of the future of Arrowverse. We'll go through that later on. So we have Todd Phillips' DC Black Label. We've had one film from that, a $1 billion movie, the Joker movie, starring Oscar nominee and award winner Joaquin Phoenix. Nearly forgot his name there, nearly drew a blank. But Joaquin Phoenix, right? So that's a successful platform. So far, so good. It has viability. They've announced a sequel. Lady Gaga as Harley Quinn. It's going to be a very exciting, expansive universe. Then you have Matt Reeves, the Batman universe. One movie, 750 million global box office. A very solid return. Not as good as Todd Phillips' billion-dollar return. Now, why did the Batman make 750 million or around that in the global box office, but the Joker movie did so much better? I think one of the major differences is you've got Joaquin Phoenix, and he's a critically acclaimed actor. Obviously, the fake controversy around the movie helped get it to that $1 billion, but ultimately, in my opinion, and I love both the Batman and Joker, I would say Joker is the better movie. It's the movie I enjoyed the most. And that doesn't mean I have any criticisms, huge criticisms of the Batman. You see, in Todd Phillips and Matt Reeves, these are both directors, auteurs, who are not really proficient at doing action set pieces. Now, with Joker, that's not important because he's writing a character study. It doesn't matter. Now, in terms of the Batman, yes, Matt Reeves is giving us a character study in the Batman, but a Batman movie needs lots of action. Now, the first Batman movie got away with it. It has one literal, awesome, robust car chase sequence, but it's a car chase sequence, right? And you can do that. But is Matt Reeves any good at action? I don't know. I can't remember seeing a lot of great action in his previous movies. And I'm not an expert on Matt Reeves as a director, but I did love his Apes movies, the two Apes movies he did, and I do love the Batman. Of course, he's a really, really good auteur. There's no question about that. So Phillips can get away with not being proficient in action because that's not what he's doing. He doesn't need to do it. It's irrelevant. But when you're making a Batman movie, you need that side of it. And I think that's a discussion we've had on my lives as well with one person whose name escapes me. Sorry about that. Haven't done the live for ages, and it's morning, I'm hungover. Sorry that I forgot your name. Don't take it personally, right? Anyway, so that is an issue. So the second movie will need a bit more action because you've done this noir detective drama in the first film, and that's great. I don't expect he'll still be the world's greatest detective, but I think it won't be a pure kind of noir detective movie because it's a sequel, because they need to move it on. They need to flesh out the rogues villains as well and what they're going to do with this movie. And there's fabulous possibilities for the Batman sequel and for the Joker sequel. So those films, even though I've belabelled Matt Reeves' kind of apparent lack of coherence in directing action, you know, the man did a great job. The Batman's a great movie, no question about that. And so is the Joker. So their viability is A-OK. Basically, the Joker, 10 out of 10, over $1 billion. That's amazing. Cost under 100 million to make. That's a great result. It is the most profitable comic book movie of all time because of the lowness, the cheapness of the budget. But the Batman cost around 100 million to make. Forget about the COVID delays. I'm not including that within the budget because that's not Matt Reeves' fault. That's not Matt Reeves' Roadhouse. They don't include that within the budgetary system of the movie anyway. So the Batman didn't cost much to make and it made 750. That means that at the very least, at the lower end, if you put in marketing and stuff, it at least made a profit of 500 million. That's a lot of fucking money for a movie. It's not groundbreaking, it's not record-breaking, but it's good. So the studio were happy with both movies. The viability is there. So they have to continue and they will continue. Matt Reeves has got a multitude of streaming shows planned and lots of other stuff. So as I can tell right now, these universes are all viable. They've had their sequels announced. Now, that's very interesting to me because there's been rumours told to us by respected huge publications who I never trust anyway, saying that David Zaslav wants the DC studios and wants the whole of Warner Brothers to be kind of divided into different departments. That's a good idea. And we've been told that he wants a singular universe. So if he wants a singular universe, why has he greenlit Joker 2 and the Batman suit because they made money. That it's as simple as that. So they're going to continue as long as they make money. So there isn't a singular universe, and there doesn't seem to be a plan from my point of view and what I'm being told that they're looking to bring the Joker universe and the Batman universe together. The moment he introduced his own Joker, that went out the window, which is a shame because that would have been special. But, you know, two separate auteur directors don't want to mismatch their visions. And I can understand that. So we've got two separate standalone universes. That's fine. And then we've got the troublesome DCEU. We were talking about the Flash movie earlier on. And so where do we go with this? What do we do with this? Well, those discussions have happened in the literal term in terms of what we do with the Flash movie. Because if we do go back, if they do go back and recast Ezra, if they do bring back Henry Cavill's Superman or a brand new Superman within that movie, I think there's a potential to save the DCEU because the reputation of that movie isn't great. Because Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom is a solid movie. There's elements of the Flash movie that are really good. Recast Ezra, bring Superman. I think there's a chance to create an event here. And you still may be able to save this troublesome franchise. But the way it is right now, the DCEU, with a multitude of content being announced for HBO Max and theatres, it's a bit of a mess. The Black Canary movie, Green Lantern Corps, is that going to be in the DCEU? I don't think there's a future for that as well. It's been 2 years and we've heard nothing. I doubt that the Black Canary film by Misha Green, starring Journey Smollett, The Black Canary, has a future. But they've greenlit a multitude of these projects. What about the Aqualad thing? Is that happening? Of course it's not. This was just Emmerich and Hamada. Green lighting, trying to fool us with garnish, trying to create an illusion of a successful extended universe when they haven't earned the right to be a successful extended universe. So, personally, for me, I would, what I think. I think there's ways and means that you may be able to save the DCEU, right? But for me, and it's difficult, I agree, with the Joker universe being successful and Reeves, the Batman movie, being so successful, it's difficult to cancel those movies and it would be unfair to the fans of those movies as well. But if it was up to me in a world where I could make these decisions, I think the better decision would be is just to say, there's two things you can do. You can cancel the DCEU. You can cancel the Reeves universe and the Phillips universe and start again with a singular franchise. That would be the better idea, right? Or you keep Todd Phillips' universe and you keep Matt Reeves' the Batman universe and you say, right, we're going to have a universe where different people do different things. We're going to have Matt Reeves' the Batman universe. We're going to have Todd Phillips' DC Black Label universe. They will do their things. We're just going to have individual standalone universes with different directors running them. And that's what we're going to do. And maybe one day these worlds can cross over. But right now, we're just going to allow people to do their own things. There's no cameos, there's no Easter eggs, there's no crossovers. So it's one of those two things. You either get rid of everything and start again, or you keep what Matt Reeves is doing, you keep what Phillips is doing, and go that way with different projects. And while you're doing that, you secretly develop a brand new mainstream franchise. Because for me, I've just discussed how you can save the Flash movie, but in my opinion, it's still troublesome and messy. And I would probably just want to start again. And even these upcoming movies, a controversial thing, but the cleanest way would be, do you know what? We're going to lose a fucking lot of money out of this. And no one in Hollywood would ever do this. But I'd either just be saying, we just need to get through these fucking movies, whether they're flop or successful, and just start again, or just cancel these movies, whatever. But no one's cancelling movies in Hollywood, not that when they've invested hundreds of millions of dollars in them altogether. But for me, the cleanest way would be to start from scratch. But it's so difficult because they've made films and they've greenlit projects. This is why it's so messy. Ezra Miller makes the whole situation messier. And not having Superman in a Flash movie that resets the universe is also a problem. So I think right now, as it is, the DCEU has no viability. So you either delete it, get rid of it, release these movies, and then start again, which is going to take a long time, isn't it? Because we've got Black Adam coming. We've got Shazam! Fury of the Gods coming this year, and the rest of the movies next year. I suppose that could carry them over while they're developing new ideas. So I don't know what they'll actually do with the DCEU, but for me, that is the only one out of that and the Reeves verse and the Todd Phillips verse. The DCEU at the moment has zero viability. So they either release the movies and start again, or they reassess what they're doing with that universe. Then we have to ask, what is Zaslav's master plan? You've heard about my thoughts. Does he have a plan? Because right now, all I can see his plan being is, I know, let's separate WB into different departments. Something I agree with. Let's create a DC Studios and have a singular president of those studios. Now, he tried to bring in Emma Watts, former CEO of Paramount. Now, I didn't agree with him going to Emma Watts because Emma Watts did a good job at Paramount, but I don't see how she has the know-how to be the president of a DC Studios. Yes, she has the knowledge how to run a studio, but running a DC Studios is very different to running an entire studio. This is a studio that focuses on one subject matter, DC. And we look at the king, Kevin Feige. He's been producing and making Marvel movies from before he got involved with the MCU. He was involved with flops what's his name? Daredevil, that's right, starring Ben Affleck. That was a huge flop. He was involved in that. He was involved with the Raimi trilogy, the Bryan Singer X-Men movies in the early days. So whether he, and there's a misconception that he's a true blue Marvel fan, but the fact is, this is a very talented movie producer who knows everything he needs to know about Marvel because he's been involved with so many Marvel movies, even before he got involved with Marvel Studios. So he became, because he wasn't the president of Marvel Studios at the beginning, there were other people involved making decisions. He threatened to quit, go to DC, then they made him president of Marvel Studios, and they haven't looked back since. They've never looked back, by the way. But he had all this history, pre-Marvel Studios, with Marvel content. And what we need at DC Studios is a similar situation where we have someone who's been working and producing DC films for yonks. Even if they've been flops, it doesn't matter. Kevin Feige was involved with flops prior to the MCU. That's fine. We need someone who understands DC as a universe and understands these characters, because Emma Watts was the wrong decision. And clearly, Emma Watts didn't become the president of DC Studios because Zaslav kind of saw some red flags. So ultimately, he saw what I saw even before he went and spoke to her. If he took my advice, he would never have spoke to her and wasted the Zoom hours and the Zoom meetings talking to her. Totally wrong. You can't just get a basic, former CEO of a studio. You are looking at someone to run a studio that runs one thing. So you need some knowledge of that thing and a history. So you bring someone in. Now, it can't be someone that's too old. It can't be someone who's too young. But even if it's someone in their 40s, late 40s, early 50s, that's cool. Just someone who has the ability and the skill, who understands DC and has the knowledge of these characters and these universes to be the leader of a DC Studios. And that's what we need. Then these big decisions can start to happen. But Zaslav wants and needs DC to make money straight away. And in terms of the DCEU, there's not a viability there. So that's his plan so far, to have a DC Studios. But beyond that, has he got a plan? There's rumours that he likes Batman versus Superman, that he's going to restore the Snyderverse. I don't know. That would be awesome from my point of view, not from everyone's. But he hasn't done it, has he? He hasn't announced that. He hasn't made these decisions. So I think what he's thinking of is appointing a president of DC Studios, then allowing them to go with it. But he's a micromanager, Zaslav. And I like Zaslav. I like him questioning J.J. Abrams and his contract and the non-exclusive element of it. It's something I questioned at the very beginning via this channel and my other platforms as well. So I think Zaslav is a good bloke. I think he understands that this studio has been run by absolute clowns and he wants to fix it. It's going to take time. But you have, this is where I'll make my decision. When they announce the new president of DC Studios, that's when I'll make my mind up. Because if it's someone with no DC experience or knowledge whatsoever, it's a non-starter and I'll be very, very worried for the future. And finally today, we're going to go back in time and discuss the Smallville movie event, Absolute Justice. It's very rare for a show in its 9th season to feel so strong and have fans like me still excited for it. So I remember hearing the news, and it was from a friend in the industry, and they rang me up and said, "Oh my God, Mick, they're making a Smallville movie." I said, "What, in theatres?" They said, "No, don't be silly, but it's a movie event." And they were telling me that Jeff Johns was going to write this, that he was introducing the JSA. I was so fucking excited. Unfortunately, I was on Twitter back then on a different account called Smallville Mad. Yeah, now I'm Movies TV Mad. I was obsessed with Smallville. Please forgive me. Anyway, so I was so excited. Listen, Absolute Justice is a great achievement because Jeff Johns, you can say what you like about Jeff Johns in terms of the DCEU, but Smallville was taken over in season 8 by other showrunners because Alfred Goff and Miles Miller, the creators and showrunners for 7 seasons, left after the end of season 7. So they decided to put in, and it was Al Miles who made this decision, to bring in 4 writers that have been on the show for many, many years. So we had Todd Slavkin, Darren Swimmer, and Kelly Souders and Brian Peterson, all running Smallville in season 8. Now, 2 of them actually left, and Kelly and Brian remained from season 9 and 10. Now, Kelly and Brian made a very exciting decision to bring in Jeff Johns to write 3 different episodes. So season 8 was Legion, season 9 was Absolute Justice, season 10 was Booster Gold, which was brilliant as well. I still think Legion is my favourite from Jeff Johns in the Smallville canon. But to bring in Jeff Johns and to get him to bring in the JSA into Smallville canon was a very exciting thing. And on a television budget, this could have been so shit because the JSA had been introduced, if I remember rightly, into Arrowverse, and it's shit. But the Justice Society of America in Smallville canon is beautiful. And, even Tom Welling wrote the second part of this movie. And, sorry, say that again. Tom Welling directed the second part of this movie. Tom Welling played Clark Kent for 10 seasons of Smallville. And he was great. I don't agree with his anti-costume stance, but hey, you can't be right all the time, can you, Tom? But lots of respect for Tom Welling. But this movie, they were 2 episodes put together, but it felt like a movie when you watch them together. Jeff Johns paid so much respect to the history of the JSA. There's a scene when Clark's in their old headquarters and you can see pictures and you can see the round table. It's like you're opening a fucking comic book. So when you talk about Jeff Johns, it's very difficult because there's the Jeff Johns from the DCEU, but then there's the iconic Jeff Johns from the comics. And no matter what diehard Snyder stands say, he is a great comic book writer. You can't take that away from him. So there's the iconic comic book writer and the guy who wrote 3 amazing Smallville episodes. And Absolute Justice deserved multiple Emmy awards, but because the Emmys are snobs, they didn't do it. But absolutely amazing. So they introduce Hawkman from the JSA, Stargirl, but the pick of the characters and the adaptation that they got spot fucking on is Dr. Fate, and I forgot the actor's name, and that should be sacrilege. That should be a sin, because he plays Dr. Fate and Kent Nelson, who is the version of the person who puts on the helmet of Naboo. I knew jack shit about Dr. Fate and the JSA before I watched Smallville's Absolute Justice. 90 minutes later, which is around the runtime, I knew everything I needed to know. Just like his Legion episode. I knew jack about Legion. Then after the season 8 episode Legion of Smallville, I knew everything about Legion. And I'm thinking, wow, there's corners of the DC universe I didn't know about. Smallville actually made me a DC fan. That's the point. I always loved Superman. But Smallville wasn't just a show, a pre-Superman show. It was very clever about educating you about the different corners of DC. But you know what really made me a Smallville fan? Titans Comics Smallville Monthly Magazine. There always used to be these sections of it where you could learn about DC and read like sections of different comics. It was, I don't know if any of you can remember buying the magazine, but it was amazing. So Smallville really, really made me the rounded DC fan I am today, but I was always a Superman fan from the moment as a small boy I saw Superman the movie. And Smallville reinvigorated that flame that was dimmering in my heart for Superman. Smallville saved me in every way a person can be saved. It motivated me to carry on living and not take my own life when I was living on my own in shared accommodation, and I didn't even know where the next penny was coming from to buy food and pay for my rent. It was a very, very worrying time for me. So Smallville, and actually Russell T Davies' Doctor Who, were keeping me going at that time. But let's go back to Absolute Justice. So this version of Dr. Fate is amazing because they deal with the psychosis of the character. You can tell when we meet Kent Nelson that he's very fucking damaged from being Dr. Fate all these years. But they do even something more amazing. And I don't know the JSA comics and I don't know about their history, but they show us that the government actually framed the JSA as vagrants and criminals because the JSA decided to go on their own. They were working with the government, but then they decided not to work with the government, or the government wanted them to work with them. So the government turned against them and framed them. And you see this movie reel of all of this while Chloe and Clark are watching it, and it's fucking amazing. I'm crying when I first see this. I cry this every time I see this. And I don't really know. I'm not ingrained in the history of the JSA. It's not my corner of DC. But when you see that, you see it's just so tragic. And it's done so well. This is why Smallville is the fucking Don. But even something as small as the rivalry in the comics between Hawkman and Green Arrow is done so well. Michael Shanks is a fucking, amazing Hawkman. Amazing Hawkman. And I tell you what, the guy in Black Adam is going to have to go a long way to get anywhere near what Michael Shanks did. Because Michael Shanks is a very capable television actor. He was in, I forgot the name of the show now, based on the movie. What's it fucking called? Anyway, it doesn't matter. But yeah, great actor who's been around for yonks. And he was amazing as Hawkman. Kent Nelson was amazing. That Stargirl they had was really, really good as well. I'm not going to compare her to the Stargirl in Jeff Johns' series. Now, Stargirl, that version of Stargirl is based on Jeff Johns' late sister. So it's a very emotional story for him. That's why he's pretty much got rights to Stargirl and no one else can touch it. So it's a very emotional story for Jeff. So sometimes we look at these people in the public eye and we demonize them, but we don't really know the people. Everyone has a story and we must respect people before we demonize them. I can't approve of everything of Jeff Johns' decisions within the DCEU. For example, he wrote Ben Affleck's Batfleck movie and wanted Matt Reeves to direct that movie. Thankfully, Matt had the morals to say, fuck you, and stormed out and didn't come back until they offered him the chance to make his own Batman movie, a beautiful movie we all experienced earlier this year. But there's bad and good within all of us. So to totally demonize people, I just feel is wrong. Look at the human being, because a very talented man. Absolute Justice is one of the best episodes of comic book TV ever made. And it was so proficient, it was so compelling, and it worked. Go back to the Smallville pilot. We went from the pilot at Smallville High and the meteor shower to 9 years later, the JSA being introduced. Because as I said a couple of DCEU dailies ago, this show was patient. It let its characters and concept breathe. It earned the right to become the show it did on the Smallville movie event, Absolute Justice. This has been the DCEU Daily. We've been Mick, your host with the most. Just ask your girlfriends and your wives. Please like, share, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you never miss this beautiful perfection. And I'll see you again for Monday's DCEU Daily. Until we see each other again, goodbye, au revoir, auf Wiedersehen.